now.
So welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you all can join us for another discussion on democratizing business capital and the securities legal space. I'm Elizabeth, managing attorney of Elizabeth L. Carter, Esquire LLC, which is also the host of this interview series entitled Democratizing Business Capital, #Black Capital Matters, with sponsorship by Law for Economic Democracy. I'm also joined by Tanique Ross, law clerk for the firm, as well as 30-year law student at John Marshall Law School at University of Illinois in Chicago. Shanique will assist with me with the Q&A portion of the interview, which would occur at the end, and we all encourage you to reserve your questions until then. So either you put them in the chat, or if you feel more comfortable, sort of raising your hand, we can engage that as well. So the purpose of this interview series is to help democratize business capital through an exposition of Black capital in all its variety. More specifically, we hope to increase the representation of Black investors, small businesses, and practitioners within the business capital space, which, by the way, is in desperate need of racial equity. This is especially true where Black businesses remain systematically under-resourced, especially in light of COVID. It has been reported that COVID-19 forced 41% of Black-owned businesses to close, compared to just 17% of white-owned businesses. This is in large part due to insufficient institutional support of Black businesses. So it is important that businesses owned and controlled by Black founders have greater access to alternative capital formation options that are better designed to counter the systematic issues faced by this group. So for the third installment of this particular interview series, #Black Capital Matters, I would like to introduce Renee King. Renee is the founder of fundBlackFounders and fundBlackwomen, both rewards-based crowdfunding platforms designed to support Black-owned businesses. Prior to her current work with these platforms, Renee founded Tech Your Elders, a tech-enabled service offering technology tools and tips for caring for elders. That sounds really, really cool. So welcome, Renee. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation. I'm excited to be on here because, I think what you do is so important too, and drastically needed. But I love it.
Thank you.
So how do you want to kick this off? Should I tell you a little bit more about me and what we do and then get into questions, or how do you want to do this?
No intro.
I like your intro. I want to give a little bit more context though, right, to it so people understand. I'm gonna give a little more context. Listen, her intro is spot on. And when you reference Tech Your Elders, I am a serial entrepreneur, okay? So before fundBlackFounders, there was Tech Your Elders. Before Tech Your Elders, there were lots of other companies that I've been the power behind starting and launching. So I've been entrepreneur, then went into entrepreneurship. During my Tech Your Elders journey though, I witnessed an investor literally on stage with a bunch of Black entrepreneurs, POC entrepreneurs were there at this conference. And I witnessed this investor shame a group of Black entrepreneurs for not being able to raise a friends and family round. Literally the quote was, if you can't raise a friends and family round, what does that say about you? That's what this investor said. Wow. And that was when it was and I was early in my Tech Your Elders journey. And I was just this is very interesting to me because we all, and for folks who don't know this, right? So that friends and family round, typically speaking, there's a lot of money that goes into people raise during that round outside, I guess you can say what traditional people call a friends and family round. There's about $6 billion gets raised in that round where people are able to go to an aunt or an uncle and say, I have this idea. And the uncle or the aunt who is well off, financially secure says, I like that idea. Let me give you a $10,000, $25,000, or $100,000 check for you to go forth and try that idea. So for Black entrepreneurs, that's not generally our experience, right? Because we know what the wealth gap is going on here, and due to lots of systemic issues, some of the entrepreneurs that I know, we're the first ones out of our family to even make it pretty well off while we have this flexibility to do what we're doing. So the fact that we don't have that chance of running that traditional friends and family round. So this is why crowdfunding is a great alternative. So when I heard that quote, when that investor shamed us, I decided I'm going to create friends and family capital for every Black entrepreneur. And that's what fundBlackFounders is. We take a really nurturing, collaborative approach, and we pair that with group economics to help our founders secure capital they need so they can fulfill their wildest entrepreneurial dreams. Since we started, we launched in January. I think we launched on Martin Luther King 2020. That's when we launched. And since then, the Friends and Family Capital alternative that we've created has over 2,000 participants in it who have collectively provided over 180K capital to these founders on our platform. So the point, where we're going with this is that it takes a village to raise a founder, especially a Black founder. And my mission with fundBlackFounders is that we could create that village, starting with we want to create the village for 10,000 Black founders and then grow that to 100,000 and then grow that further. So we're really trying to reimagine conscious consumerism. And I'm looking forward to everyone, because we need to all be part of this village, everyone on this call in joining me and encouraging everyone, all communities, organizations, not just Black people. It could be everyone of all races and individuals. We can all come together to fill this friends and family gap and use crowdfunding to do that. So that's the spiel.
No, and thank you for that, because as an attorney in this space, a crowdfunding securities attorney, there's a certain amount of capital that the founder would need to even get to me, right? I mean, as a Black attorney, though, in this space, I do have the same thinking you were thinking. How can we better serve the Black community, knowing, these issues exist, knowing that friends and family is just not a thing? So I had to come up with my own creative sort of alternative payment arrangements or equity in lieu of compensation, just really thinking about that topic. But for the most part, that is an issue. And I also encourage them to engage in rewards-based crowdfunding for that purpose, right? Because again, they can't just go to aunt and uncle or mom or dad or grandpa and grandma to really say, okay, I need 10,000 or 50 or 20,000 to start off with, or even the bank. And we know that banks are more pivot or more, I guess, cater to white founders or white business owners than they would to Black. And so we really just don't have those alternatives. And so, like you said, rewards base is filling a gap, a much needed gap for Black founders and Black businesses. And so can you explain a little more of the difference between rewards-based and an investment-based crowdfunding? And so you mentioned you have 2,000 participants that raise about a little over 100,000. So also give us a sense of what the average raise is on rewards versus an investment. So just those distinctions there.
So first question, the difference between rewards crowdfunding versus investment or equity crowdfunding. There's a couple different options of crowdfunding, right? We have rewards-based crowdfunding, we have investment equity-based crowdfunding, and then we have debt-based crowdfunding, right? fundBlackFounders is rewards. So in exchange for someone contributing to any of the campaigns on our platform, the entrepreneur may give early access to their product or service, early access to an event. They'll give them maybe a discount on their product or service, some type of limited edition offering. There is no exchange of securities. So you're not getting any ownership in the founder's journey. You are just getting some type of reward, whether it is some type of product or service that you're getting in exchange for your contribution, or even a thank you. In debt-based crowdfunding, there's platforms like Kiva and Richer, there's a couple other ones. In those platforms, you contribute to the campaign and your contribution is a loan, and the founder will then pay you back that loan eventually at some type of interest rate. Lower, typically it should be better than what banks would traditionally do. And then in investment and equity-based crowdfunding, that option, you are exchanging ownership in the business. So an individual contributes to your campaign and they're going to get some type of security in your business, whether you do whatever product that platform offers, if it's straight equity in the business, if you're doing a convertible note or something of that sort. What was your other question? Hopefully that clarified that.
It was perfect, yeah. The second question was, as far as what is the average raise on a rewards-based platform? Because you mentioned it was 2,000 participants and about a little over 100,000. So I guess in general, but also particularly on your platforms, what do you normally see?
So in general, the average raise depends on like what type of campaign that you're doing. But we see like there's some data that shows like pulling from all the platforms. The average successful crowdfunding raise is anywhere between 8,000 to 10,000. That's the average. Our average is a little bit above that. And then what we're working towards is moving, since we've started in 2020, we want our average per raise per founder should be around 30K. We're currently at around the 12 to 15K mark per founder, but our goal is to get up to 30K, because what we're seeing is that traditionally speaking, to get started with your business, you need around 30K to get going. And that's the capital that we're trying to be, or to figure out for our entrepreneurs, is to give them, so everyone walks away with 30K and they can go ahead and solidly start or begin to like get out of the bootstrapping stage and further grow their business.
So what is that period of time when they're raising capital? How long is that? So to get to 30K, or even in your case, 15,000, what is that time period?
So the time period depends on how ready the founder is, right? So let me take a step back to just explain, like any crowdfunding you do, there is no crowdfunding without a crowd. So if the founder does not have a crowd, right, it's going to take them maybe longer than like an average campaign. If you have a strong crowd that's ready and willing to go and motivate, they're ready to go ahead and support your campaign, it could be around 45 days. If you're just starting and you're just starting to build this crowd or this network around you, maybe it'll take you 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. It all depends. But our process focuses on the first part where we meet with the founder, have them go through a questionnaire, fill out some details where we can assess where they are in their journey. Like, are they, do they have a crowd? What is it looking like social wise? What does the presentation of their company look like? Where are they in the development process of their business? We assess these things, and then we tell the founder at that point, all right, this is what we think you're a good fit for. This is the type of crowdfunding we think you're a good fit for, because you don't have to be a right fit for us. We're not pigeonholed. We don't pigeonhole our founders like you have to raise on fundBlackFounders. We want you to raise on the platform that's a right fit for you. And then we see where they are. And then we decide to now take them through the process of, all right, so now let's start building your crowd, right? Build your crowd and nurture them. Let's find what customers are going to be interested in what you're offering. What people in your neighborhood, people in your political community, people from your church, people in your friends and family network would be interested in supporting you. Let's start talking to them and engaging them with your business, right? So that they can be warmed up and ready. When we see that your crowd is looking good, meaning like your emails have built up and the open rate on your emails is starting to look good, and we're seeing people are responding to your social media posts and everything, then we shift you to the next step, which is creating your campaign. So what is the story that we're going to tell about your business, right? How are we going to put together your campaign page? How are we going to structure rewards to make sure you don't lose money? We start in that create page, and what is going to be the marketing plan to market your campaign? Once they're done with that, we then move them into the run phase, right? So now your campaign is live, and now we are engaging with you to help you run your campaign properly, which is you literally are like Joe Biden out here or Barack Obama out here running it, right? Like you are like a politician talking to everyone, doing interviews, doing press, telling everyone about your business and driving them back to your campaign so that they'll go ahead and contribute. And then you get the funds. Right? So once you do all that well, then they get the funds.
45 days is not bad, right? To get $15,000, $20,000.
It's not bad, but I will say that in our experience, a lot of entrepreneurs, they start their campaign by just creating it, instead of when you really need to start your campaign with assessing your crowd and building a crowd. That's their day one at that 45-day mark. They think oh, as long as I just put this pretty page up, the people will come. Or if I put this pretty page on your platform, you're just going to bring the people. No platform brings the people. You have to bring the crowd, right? And then when you bring the crowd and it starts to pick up traction, then a lot of platforms then will start to turn on additional marketing around you. But you have to signal a certain point before they even do that, because some platforms, especially in the equity space, they can't show preferential treatment to certain campaigns, right? Like from the get-go, because that's like, I don't know, it's illegal technically for them to do that because you're like them promoting another investment over another investment. You understand what I mean? So it's important that I would say the biggest thing, if anyone is even considering crowdfunding, even if you're not set, I try to encourage entrepreneurs, like, let's come to us and let's start building your crowd. That's it. And you can do anything with your crowd. You don't have to crowdfund. They could just convert to customers. They can convert to employees. They can convert to just people who are just like evangelists for you. But start with building that crowd, that village you need. Because if you have that village, you have that network, you're golden. Like funding will come.
Oh, that's awesome that you are that involved with the client or the business, right? You're saying helping them build that crowd. I think a lot of people struggle with that because this day and age, you have a lot of social media gurus, right? They just all these followers and have all the support. Whereas many of us or many people who not on that wave of like, it's kind of new for everyone. So it's good that you're focusing their attention on both the social media, but also their in-person, context and maybe allowing them or helping them ask questions that they otherwise wouldn't or engage with their support in the community before. So that's interesting that you do that. And why did you think, as far as your business model, do you see other rewards-based crowdfunding platforms doing that, or is that something unique to your platform?
So that is very unique to our platform. And I will say the reason why we did that is because we see in other platforms that our entrepreneurs would go on there. And it's not that they can't crowdfund. That's not the issue of like why their campaigns are not successful or why they're not hitting, the numbers that they want. It's just a lack of education and a lack of knowledge of knowing how to do it properly, right? And it makes sense, right? Because also the other thing that I also find with these other platforms, a lot of the platforms were built around white entrepreneurs crowdfunding, right? And that's a different experience than Black entrepreneurs crowdfunding, okay? It's a culturally different experience. And we build that in our curriculum. And let me explain what I mean by that. Like white founders, like especially when you see like these campaigns that are doing like significant numbers, they're like in the like 500,000 range, or they're doing 6-figure range. They launch campaigns as a part of their launch strategy of their product. They've already worked the product out. So let me explain that. So they've already taken on friends and family capital, right? They've already had a significant investment in their business. And this crowdfunding campaign that they're launching on, let's say a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they're launching that as a part of their marketing strategy to get the word out of the product. And how they're launching it is that what's the secret is that they're spending around $30,000 to prepare and market that campaign, right? Wow. So that's the thing. Okay. So our entrepreneurs now are going, and this is what I noticed, our entrepreneurs are going on these platforms and they're just launching, and they're not launching with 30K worth of like prep behind them. They're just launching because they're using this as a campaign to get the capital they need to build the business, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, it's not a level playing field. Right? So like it's a different thing. So that's why we incorporate the coaching, and we incorporate culturally relevant coaching in it, because the other aspect we notice too when talking to our entrepreneurs is that in the white communities, crowdfunding is viewed as, yeah, this is what you do. You got a business idea, like totally go out there, like this is business funding, crowdfunding. In our communities, a lot of us don't know about it. And if we do know about it, we know about GoFundMe. Right? We know about it when, my parent, like somebody passed away and we got to raise money for a funeral, or we had the George Floyd issue that happened, like, and then there's a GoFundMe campaign. So we're automatically thinking this is like a negative connotation around it. It's like I'm in desperate need or I'm in dire need. So we like took that on as like adding that in our curriculum to start saying, no, there is there's other reasons why people use crowdfunding, and it is not a beg, because that's what sometimes our founders, we have to coach them around the fact of like, this is not begging for donations. You're not begging for contributions. We show them and we coach them around this is the value that you're providing with your campaign, right? This is the value that you're providing with the rewards. And like we frame them in that so they understand like, you lead all of your conversations, you lead how you present and talk about your business as like, there's tremendous value that I'm including you to be a part of this early stage of my journey. So that's why we jumped in. A lot of platforms don't do that. They're just concerned with a numbers game, just bring people on, you sink or you fail. It's not up to them. They don't care. We're not like that. Like our goal, we don't want unsuccessful campaigns on our platform. We want everyone to be a success because we understand how critical this capital is for our entrepreneurs who are getting locked out of bank loans. They're getting locked out of venture capital. They're getting locked out of credit. They're getting locked out of all of it. They got locked out of the PPP. They get locked out of everything due to like the systemic issues that we have going on. So it's really critical. So it doesn't benefit me. It doesn't benefit my platform. It doesn't benefit my community for a founder to fail on us. So we take it very personal and make sure we surround them to make sure that they succeed.
Right. And going back to why Black matters, like why you being a Black founder, why your fund is called fundBlackFounders matters. It's that cultural sensitivity, that awareness, and the paying attention to the issues that specifically target Black people that do not, really affect others the same way. And if you're not part of that community, if you're not really immersed in it, you're not going to think of it, right? If you're a Kiva, there's some things you don't have to think of, right? But someone like you are thinking of it because you're immersed and you're rooted in the community. So that, that is very important. And I'm glad you elaborate on that, because I think some people feel, oh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. I go here and go there. And I wish it was that way, right? But we start to see that certain needs are really not met, right? And so leading to my next question is, what was your reason behind a platform specifically for Black women? So we have fundBlackFounders, which and by definition includes Black women, but why did you think having a separate one specifically for Black women made sense?
So let me, so to clarify around that, we have one crowdfunding platform, which is fundBlackFounders, right?
Okay.
fundBlackWomen is what we started as. We started with that, which was just it wasn't a rewards crowdfunding platform. It was just a landing page. And why we amplify still fundBlackWomen, we amplify both, but fundBlackWomen, because when we look at the data, we know that Black entrepreneurs are leading the way in starting businesses, but specifically when you drill down, it's Black women entrepreneurs are leading the way in starting this. So we started by galvanizing and supporting Black women specifically, but we knew fundBlackFounders was our destination, right? Our destination to pull this through. And we also have fundBlackMen too. We just haven't activated it.
Oh, nice.
And it's a resource thing as for us figuring out like where we go. But fundBlackFounders was our landing spot from the get-go, because I will tell you, I know Black women, and I'm a Black woman, right? So I know Black women are leading the way, and I love that we are leading the way. But I also know we need support, right? And I also know that a chain is as weak as its weakest link. So while I love that we shower Black women, and myself included, with lots of resources, I'm also very mindful that we do not leave our Black men behind, okay? So we're not gonna get where we need to go as a collective if we just only pour all the resources onto Black women. Where we are going, we all have to go together. And that's why it's fundBlackFounders, to be honest with you.
Right. No, it makes sense. And it makes sense to have separate spaces when it's necessary, and then to come together, like you said, as a collective, as a unity for the cause that really affects all of us, right? So this is, you're unique in this. And I so glad that you are engineering both of these platforms, because I often think that, I think it's sexy now, and fundBlackFounders, as you know, is highly sexy. But I think oftentimes people are still afraid, including Black people, to even, use it. And I understand that culturally Black is American term, et cetera, but in terms of really creating services and products that are for the Black community or people in the diaspora on the African mainland, and for you to do it is so bold. Maybe not to you, but I expect, because we're in a different generation, but others before us will say, wow, like you're really going in, and aren't you afraid that you won't be as successful? And that is a question I want to pose to you. Do you feel that, specifically targeting Black, that you're missing out on opportunities, or you're not going to be as successful as you could be?
So when we were starting this, we were like, fundBlackFounders is the name. That's it. This is what we're calling it. And we're saying Black. This is it. Like, we're very focused. We walked in like, I don't care. We're going to be that elephant in the room who's going to say, but what about Black entrepreneurs? We're not going to say, what about BIPOC? We're not going to say, what about POC? We're not going to say, what about minority? We're going to say, we're going to be very specific, right? We're going to say Black. And we got pushback around that. I'm not going to tell you, like, we've gotten pushback and we still get some pushback around it, where we've heard individuals say, why don't you change your name? Like, don't say Black. Maybe you should say noir. Maybe you should say mahogany or something like that. It'll be whatever it is. And I get it. But I feel and it's not just what I feel, it's also like data shows, right? When we look at, like, when people say resources get poured down to, look at diversity and inclusion as a perfect example. D&I, companies have D&I initiatives, they tote it, right? And when we like pull back and look at the data, whenever they pull out a resource for diversity and inclusion, we look at who's the top person that it is. It goes to white women. They view diversity and inclusion as like, well, we added on more white women into the thing, so we're diverse. No, like, you're not, right? And then whenever you look at any resources that get pulled towards people who are marginalized, I guess you can say, at the bottom of the resource, every single one, it's always Black. So to think that I could create a platform that targets the entire marginalized, like, US, right? And that the resource is going to get to my core community, it's not possible. I have to be very focused and say, no, I'm going to start at the community that gets the least. And if I solve this issue for that community, then I'll totally expand. And I'll expand. And also, different cultures have different experiences. I know a Black entrepreneur experience, right? A Latinx entrepreneur experience. Yeah, we have some similarities, but it's a different cultural experience. So that point, when I'm ready to expand into those markets, if we go that route, then sure, then we bring on someone who has more experience, and then we go ahead and do that. I won't say that's what our intention of our roadmap is. Our roadmap is more so like to go global, because we're getting pinged from founders in London. We're getting pinged from founders in Canada. We're getting pinged from founders in Africa who are like, we need this. So our goal is, like, when you look at the power of the Black dollar, you look at the power of our culture and our influence. Yes, we can still, like, this can totally be based on Black entrepreneurs and solving it just for them, versus trying to say, I'm going to take on all the marginalized, diverse entrepreneurs and figure it out for them. No, I think where it's very understated, our power. Like, sometimes I think they look at these census data numbers and they see our numbers and, like, look at this last election, who showed up? Like, we're small in number, but we're so mighty. We are so mighty when we go together. Right. So I don't have doubts on where we'll be successful, or I don't have doubts that it'll be enough market share. And we chose, like I said, to reiterate, we chose to say fund Black founders because we made it a conscious decision that we would always be that voice in every room, regardless. Like, even though you want to scream it, but you feel like you can't scream it because, you know, you don't want to be shunned, or you don't want to be ostracized, or you don't want to. So we want to be that voice. We want to be the person who's going to sit at the table and say, okay, that sounds great, but what about Black? Right. And like, bring it home. Right. That's what we knew we will take the one for the team, I guess you can say, and be that advocate.
And I love it. I love how you explained it, you know, really, especially the example with having this broad support for people of color, and not acknowledging that we're all not the same. Our culture is different, which means by design, some of us and many of us will just get left to the wayside. And then also, when you look at the numbers, it oftentimes are Black people and Black women at the bottom. Oh, people of color or women, and it's white women and others that are not necessarily Black, and then we just ignore it, right? And so you're right and smart in that you have to have a specific angle or a specific target to really solve the issue. Otherwise, it continues to, to get, ignored, really. So thank you for that. You being a Black founder, a Black woman founder and entrepreneur, what was your journey like raising capital for the platform itself, for your whole, both, fund Black women, fund Black founders, and the quiet fund Black men? But what is your journey around capital raising?
So we are early in our raise. We're actually preparing to open up our raise in the next year. So like probably mid-January, we're going to open up our raise. So we have bootstrapped it so far. We have taken in some grants. We won the Entrepreneurial Dream Maker. We are a recipient of that. We won that award. So we've taken in capital from that. So we've just been building relationships with investors who they're interested. And I think for us, we're possibly going to go a different path. And we'll talk about it more, I guess, once we go there. But I think I don't see us going the traditional venture capital path, right? I think we're actually going to be more on a private equity path, where we're talking with folks who are going to come in as growth partners for us, right? So it's not so when I talk about this, I mean, we're not looking to go on this path of raising a ton of money, burn out of it, right? And not be focused on profit. And then 18 months later, we're back in this, okay, we got to raise more capital. We're more so trying to surround ourselves with folks who are we're going to do our initial raise, but then they're going to bring more than the raise. They're going to bring in things that are going to really take off some of the load off of us, or take off some of the cost or the spend in terms of other things. And it's more of I feel like I'm sounding very surface because I can't go into complete details on it.
No, it sounds like you're saying funding plus maybe technical support and this other type of support,
yes.
Right?
So it doesn't, so we're not going to be sitting here trying to prove, yeah, we could 10x your return to the venture capitalists. No, it's more so we're going to be aligned with folks who understand we need patient capital, and also they're going to bring more than capital. They're going to bring honestly the solid stuff that's going to help really help our growth trajectory.
Right. That makes sense. And it makes sense that you have, really thought this out, because sometimes I do find that founders aren't thinking about, the type of capital, what will happen if you take certain type of capital, or what are the expectations of those investors, right? And so you often see people, especially because, certain type of capital, like venture capital, is getting more, awareness around it. And so folks are entering these spaces, but not really knowing what they're getting themselves into. It's a difference if you did and you're going in informed and you're just rocking and moving. But if you're not and you're signing documents, and then one day you look up, if you thought you were going to have a company that you own 10, 15 years down the line, that's not the case, right? So it's good that you're going in really informed. So what is oh, go ahead. No, respond to that.
And I think you have to assess the space really well, right? To understand the same struggle that we're going through as Black entrepreneurs, the venture capitalists who look like us, so the firms that are starting now to because they want to be more diverse, or they're they recognize there's a market that we're leaving money on the table, right? So those funds that are targeting marginalized founders, they're going through the same struggle that we go through. Okay. Our CDFI banks also, right? They're going through the same struggle that Black entrepreneurs go through. Our nonprofits are going through the same struggle. And that struggle is that to get capital, right? To get capital. And right now in this climate, there is a shift, right? Because there are these, I'm going to say George Floyd dollars, rest in peace. But there are these dollars that have come up because now the world is kind of waking up as for the systemic issues that are there, and they're trying to pay their way out of it a bit, right? And we'll see how long that lasts. But just know there it is, and I'm fine with it. But I think you just have to recognize I think for our product, it would be, there's certain venture capitalists who are just never going to get it. Right? They're never going to understand it until we do it. So it's better to and I think as Black entrepreneurs, we really need to start thinking about that, because everyone thinks that it's only VC, right? That's the only thing that's really popular right now, where people are thinking oh, that's the path that I have to go. And if I don't get venture capital money, then my business is not worthy, or it's you're failing. And it's not the only one. We have to realize there's other options that are gonna be more aligned with you, be more aligned with where you're going with your business, and they get it. So we have to source those options. And that's what we did. We're more in a line, no, this would be a better fit than us working with certain VCs. And we're not saying we're ruling them out. I'm just saying we just know that there's certain venture capitalists that just are not gonna get it.
Right. Right. And you mentioned us. So let's talk about your team. How important is it to you that you build a representative team on your platform?
How important is it to build okay, so it's super, super, super important. Not just, so our team is very small. Okay, so I will tell you that I'm the founder and I operate in the CEO aspect slash chef, cook, bottle washer, do everything. Technical wise, we've brought on Ash and we have Stedroy, and the both of them operate on the technical components of it. Ash's background is from, he built GoFundMe, so I feel really good about him, and Stedroy too, like they do that part. There is another person on the team too, Miss Albert, who kind of like floats between backing up like where stuff drops, where balls drop for right now. We have also on our board a person who is big in the private equity space. He has his own private equity firm and he's raised capital. He has a lot of experience that I don't have. So that's why he is on the board to kind of like open doors and do these things. And his name is David Mullings. That's the internal team. And then I'll say outside of that, we have a lot of advisory, right? Advisors who kind of insulate us too. We're looking to expand the team, so I will tell you that. And we should reach out and talk to me later about that. But team to me is like network, right? And if I could tell anyone before starting a business, like, and this sometimes doesn't happen where like you have the network before you have the idea, like maybe sometimes the idea comes, but you don't have the network that is surrounding that. If I could tell anyone, build your network, just like and build your team. Like that literally can get you in places that money can't get you, how well you can work and do things, like all this stuff can't get you. Like your team can do like tremendous things. So it's really important. But I understand that it's hard too as a Black founder building team, because I think in the traditional space, like other entrepreneurs, like white entrepreneurs, they have more flexibility where they can build a team of folks who are working for equity, right? They're just working like at the initial stage, right? They're just gung-ho in it. And like, we don't have that capability all the time, right? Like we may have one or two, but we also understand like as a culture, we got to work, right? Because some of us are like providing for our entire family or providing for our parents. We have a lot. So it's not as easy for us to like bring on a co-founder or a CTO who's just going to come on for equity, right? Like to start until you raise capital and now you can pay them, right? Pay a salary. So that's a challenge. And I think like one of the things that I love that I want to raise awareness around is the work that you do. There's ways that like, even just knowing that you can do things like that, as for like figuring out leveraging your equity in your business to bring on team and things of that sort, is important to raise awareness around that with our founders.
Right. And like you said, one, is a practical issue, but also I think it's a lack of just experience with equity in lieu of, right? You know, we're not, again, it's investment space, it's business space. I mean, I think we've always been entrepreneurial. We've always been, you know, informally in these industries in a way, but to really go directly head on as we are doing here in this capital space and as an investor, it's still new. Crowdfunding is going to bring a whole lot of newer Black investors, you know, that are investing in an actual company that maybe they never met before, but they, you know, love the idea, love the product, right? And so you're right in that one is like we just can't afford it, but other part is maybe we could if maybe one or two or three, if we just knew what that actually meant and have trust and faith in the process for sure.
And I think while we're like working through that, the other thing, like if I could give you a visual representation of my team, yeah, I have my core team, but I consider you a part of my team though, right? Because like the point is that I can talk to, like you have been supportive in like ways when you like reach out to me and you're like, are you okay? And I'm like, no. Like, and then you're like, what's going on? Talk to this person. There's another person I think on this call too, like Talisha, I think I saw, is another person who, I don't know if she's still on the call. I'm not gonna like tell her business, but she's another person and she's building a product similar to what we're doing, but in a different space. I can't talk about that. I don't know where she's at with this, but she's another person that like, she's not on my team. I'm not on her team, but it's the point of that we're in this space and we talk to each other to say like, this is what I'm going through. What are you going through? Share the resources. So I think for us, we also have to start thinking about that, like getting in these rooms and start thinking like leaning on each other as part of team too, right? We can start doing that.
Right. And on the same note, what has been your experience with providing or finding the necessary professional support? So the lawyers, accountants, and those type of things, because again, even in that space, you know, a Black attorney is a foreign and just because you're Black doesn't mean you're rooted in the community either. So you're not thinking of the way the system issues as you are. So what has been your experience of, you know, really working with them or being able to sit down and talk with them or having support? Kind of explain that.
So my experience has been great with you, right? Like in talking to you. I think that is an area, and this is a whole nother conversation that we need to have, right? Just lawyers, period. Like our entrepreneurs need more support and more resources and more variety of access to more variety of lawyers, accountants, lawyers mainly, I will say, especially like securities lawyers, that's on my mind. And the reason why it's on my mind, what I'm seeing is that, so right now we're like taking in founders for our next cohort. We're talking to founders who are like, yeah, we want to be on your platform. And then also this other platform reached out to us, which is they're a debt-based platform. And it's new, they're a new platform, it's an app. And they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like our raise on there too, right? And like our pullback is like, whoa, like you need to, do you have a lawyer? Like, do you have a securities lawyer that you're working with to make sure that everything is still good in your best interest? And they're like, no, the platform said that they're going to fill everything out for us. And like, this is my cautionary issue that I'm seeing that's going to happen, is that platforms say they will do that, and that's totally fine, but you still need a lawyer who has your best interest to say, wait a minute, actually, like you're putting yourself at risk because right now you have a public and a private offering like going around, like you like, and that's like not okay. Like that's not legally sane. So I'm worried about that, right? Because like I think you need, and I think it's important for our lawyers, like I'm not gonna say like every Black lawyer is amazing, but it's a great value to like have a lawyer that looks like you, right? Who understands your experience and who can have your back, right? Who you can genuinely like just say, what do I do? Does this make sense? Like, and who will have your best interests when you're in these spaces where people are telling you things and you may not know.
Right. No, thank you for that. And also that conflict of interest. You and I talked about that too. You know, lawyers have, like you said, it's like confidentiality. People want to know that when they're speaking with their lawyer that, you know, they're not going to share the information or there's not a conflict. And a lot of folks are going in without that understanding of why a lawyer even matters in this space. One, for compliance, also just for general, you know, for your best interest in terms of negotiations and when you're signing. And I think when tech gets involved, and now we're going to see a lot more virtual in tech, it's like even with contracts. And I did a presentation on this, you know, digital contracts and the, I guess the applicability of the enforcement and how, you know, over time they are enforceable, but it makes it less legalese in a sense. It's like, oh, read this and just sign. So, right, you're right. That is going to be an issue that we're going to see more and more. And I'm taking a mental note of that too, as well, because there's going to be a lot of people that either, we don't want to wish harm. Hopefully it all turns out great. But the issue is that, especially in the Black community, we've already had limited options for capital raising. We want to keep the integrity of this, you know, super democratic process that we have now with crowdfunding, although, you know, obviously it's a barrier still to the Black community, but still it's one of the best, you know, ways to raise capital despite the barriers in mainstream. And so part of that is wanting to make sure that folks aren't sort of pulled back from it because of a bad experience or somebody could avoid it. So I'm glad that you kind of help, you know, I guess filter that and kind of help guide and like, hold on, you know, you need a attorney for this, or, you know, this is something I think you may need an attorney, maybe speak to XYZ, right? So that is good. It's good. I'm glad your experience with attorneys, well, particularly some attorneys have been great, but I agree. I think the field of law can do much better in these spaces in terms of being accessible as well. I mean, securities is not a cheap area to play in. Law has always been exclusionary for people with means, so now we've got to rethink this whole thing as we're building this Black crowdfunding ecosystem and what it means to truly.
To bring that home too, crowdfunding is, especially with investment crowdfunding too, or why there's an importance for Black crowdfunding, is that these crowdfunding platforms that came before us are not built for us, right? Are not built around us. So I find with like some of the equity platforms outside of like, oh my gosh, Lynn's platform, right? The platforms that are built for us outside of the ones
by the block.
By the block. Like I find that some of these platforms, like our founders aren't getting, because they don't accept everyone, right? And they accept very low numbers. And I'm seeing some of our founders just getting denied access to it. And that's something that why we have to come into, it takes folks like Lynn, it takes folks like there's a Talisha on here, me, to come in and make crowdfunding work better, and you, Elizabeth, and Bill, to make it work better for our community, so that we're not now, because the same issue that we're having in venture capital, where like Black founders go to them and they're talking to them and they're like, just don't get it. They're like, what? Like, how could this make money? Because they don't understand what your business is. Like, I'm seeing that start to happen in crowdfunding a bit. And like, it's important that we're in the space so that we offer another option to say, no, I know exactly what you're building. Like that barbecue sauce makes sense. Get over here. Or that whatever, or that like that hair product to release your braids. Yes, get over here. Like I get it. Yeah.
Right. No, that you're absolutely right about that. So do you find, okay, so you launched in April 2020, February 2020?
February. We launched on Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, so January.
What has been the popularity? Like, what is the pull? Have you found that your platform is popular among Black founders? Or do you, and what is your sort of strategy of getting them to you?
So we launched, we didn't do like a full like marketing blast, push out there. Like our launch has been like, we've already been in the ecosystem of founders. And then we started like talking to different folks and like putting the word out there, like general, like grassroots type talk, to entrepreneur support organizations. And just word of mouth has started to like then get founders our way, where they start hearing about, oh, my experience with them was this, you should go talk to them. Oh, my experience with that was them with whatever, and they're seeing that. So there hasn't been we have not launched marketing, right? This has been more of like, we were in the stage of testing and iterating and finding like, because our goal is like, we want to find the formula of like, we know if you follow this process, I can get you to 30K. That's it. I can get you to 30K, and then we're going to unlock some additional funding for you on top of that. Like that's our goal. So that's what we've been working on. So you're going to see more marketing start to turn up next year. So yes, it is popular. I mean, we turned off our site because we had to like fix some stuff. We turned it off in October, and I wouldn't say we turned it off. We just like put it up, and like the wait list alone had over like 100 folks like, wait a minute. And we're like, wait, we're coming back, and we relaunched it. Like we did a refresh and all that stuff. So it's picking up. We just haven't turned on marketing heavy yet, and that's coming because we're more focused on, we want to find the formula that it's like, this is what it is. And it's starting to prove out. And we're going to take more founders in to prove that out and scale it. And you'll see more.
And that's what it's about, you know, like having you super, super concerned and super interested in supporting the Black founder, right? You know, you can tell that a lot of it is your passion behind it. It's not just, oh, I, Renee, want to become famous, or I, Renee, want to make $1 million out of this. You're like, how can I really support the community? Because then you also understand it's a circle. It supports you regardless. You're going to get supported regardless, right? But you can tell that your passion is super, and I thank you for that. I have one last question before we can open it up. So what do you think, you know, can be done to increase, you know, Black founders' access to crowdfunding? And you pretty much already answered this question after the discussion, but just if you mentioned all these other platforms, and now we have you, what do you think is sort of needed in the industry?
So I think platforms like us is required, one, so that we can be more, we can start reaching out to our communities and building education around it, right? And all aspects of it, not just how to raise a campaign, but how to community supporting the campaigns, right? Like the importance of like, this is just like how you want to shop Black and buy Black, like going to these campaigns needs to be incorporated in that. So I think we're important in that aspect. I think coalition building is needed. So we're talking about that, like combining us all together and getting, so there is like, when crowdfunding, the Jobs Act passed, right? And Obama signed that in, like there's a certain chunk of capital that I believe should have been allocated towards educating communities around what crowdfunding is. And I don't know where that capital went or where that education landed, but as far as I'm concerned, our communities do not have the education. So I think that is really important, that we need to collectively come together, like how we're working on, to go get that capital to now like start back this education in our community about what is crowdfunding, the different types, how do you like do rewards-based crowdfunding, how do you do crowd investing? That's another thing. How do you do proper due diligence to know like this is something to go invest in, right? On these other platforms. Like I think the education is needed. And just focused on our community, right? Not general. It needs to be focused and targeted to say, this is what it is. What else? And then I also think we need like all the folks around it. So crowdfunding is just like this one part, but then there's like, crowdfunding touches a lot of different different folks. So like it touches lawyers, right? It touches the accountants, it touches the marketing people, it touches the person to make your video, it touches the person who like writes your copy, the platform. I feel like if we had like all of those folks who are like vetted and supported, like we know like, oh, this Elizabeth is the go-to securities lawyer, like talk to her, she knows how to do this, she has your back. Like we also need that too. We need like all those aspects, like a platform showing like these resources are catered towards you. Because when I looked at, and we know this in our journey of trying to cultivate these resources, we were going out there looking for resources that we could like say, hey, you know, I have a founder who needs like their marketing for their campaign done. And we know your agency was behind marketing, I don't know, this, whatever it is, and made that campaign hit over 1 million. We'd love to have you on board. And then we talk with them and they're like, yeah, but I don't do anything for less than 30,000 and I take a % of the raise. And we're like, what? We can't do that. so like we need more folks that look like us who understand and can do like not be cheap, but also be like cost conscious of like, yeah, this makes sense and this is how we can do it.
Yeah, understanding the market, right? Exactly. If your market is specifically for Black or marginalized groups, you have to understand that market, what can be done. So, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. Definitely more of that understanding and consciousness around it. Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much for the time. You. And we're definitely gonna open it up. If anyone has any questions in the chat, I know someone, Erica asked, how do you get connected with Renee? So maybe.
So I'm gonna put my email, info@fundBlackFounders.com. Just email me, whatever it is that you are requesting. Give me some time to respond, but we'll get there. Anything else? Right. It was a lot of talking.
Do we have any other questions in the audience? If not, I can ask another.
My question is, so when we're gonna have to do this where we have like all the security lawyers and like I want to start amplifying, like we have to figure out what we're gonna do to start amplifying, like what is a securities lawyer? What do they do? When should you start engaging with them in your journey? Like raising awareness and education around that. So I can't wait to start doing that.
Yeah, we definitely should. I mean, I started off, so this is part 2 of the interview series. So everyone on the call, if you weren't following before, you know, I started off with the Democratizing Securities Legal Space series just for that reason alone, right? To really highlight Black women, particularly because of Black women being the fastest growing entrepreneurs and just knowing that representation matters, but showing that all the ways that Black attorneys can operate in securities, right? We have Renee King or Renee Hatcher, who is a professor at a law school in Chicago, John Mark. In addition to co-ops, in addition to business development, right? She incorporates that. We had Therese May, who is a financial advisor who works in the advising space. You know, we had Florence Hardy, Florence Hardy, who owns investment crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding, but at the state level here in Illinois. And, and she's an attorney, and she's a business attorney, and just really trying to spotlight who actually doing this in this space, Black women and Black attorneys in the space, but also, like you said, to encourage others to get involved. I think part of it is education and training, which is, again, why Shanique, I'm so happy to have Shanique Ross, my law clerk, here, because I really want to encourage other law students to do the same. I mean, I know when I was a law student, I didn't think this was anything I would do, right? I mean, looking at the space of corporate America, looking at the space of business, like larger sort of securities on the stock exchange, you don't see Black. So I always wanted to support the community, which I derived from. So it wasn't something that I thought was meant for me until I became a part of it, right? Until I started working in different spaces, community development business. But you're right, I would love to do something again, connected to platforms and other people in the space like yourself, to bring these two worlds together, because it's so isolated. Lawyers operate over here. It's sort of like doctors. I never see a doctor, right? So I go to the doctor, it's like, where are you? Where do you guys hang out? So the same thing with lawyers. It's like we need to not be so isolated, but be part of the ecosystem. So definitely should do it. Tanika, do we have other questions in the chat?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
we have one more. It says, Can you speak about the costs associated with running a successful equity or crowd investing campaign?
Hey, Tanny. I think I said your name right, hopefully. So the cost, I will say, ranges. Like, there is DIY campaign where you do it yourself and you figure out all the stuff. So you're going to go like make your video from scratch. You're going to make all your creatives using Canva. Like, I think you can get it done. Like, if you're really scrappy and you do it yourself for a rewards-based, I'm not going to talk about equity just yet, rewards-based crowdfunding. You could do that for less than $500 if you like to put together all of your stuff. So thinking about video, your campaign page, doing some basic, like maybe some promotional stuff, like getting your press release out around your product, doing some basic marketing spend, like doing some Facebook ads. If you wanted to do it yourself, I would say you could do it for under $500. Then also think about the cost of your rewards. So you want to make sure you incorporate that in. So if you're going to give us a t-shirt as one of your rewards, you want to make sure you incorporate how much you've spent, your cost of goods, right? So that you make sure like you don't raise 10,000 and end up spending like 9,000 to run that campaign. So that's rewards-based crowdfunding. But I've seen then it goes up further with rewards if you want to get help around that. On our platform, we can get you with our range is anywhere between $0 to like around $2,500. And that's like if you need support around, all right, I need help on how to do the email marketing. I need help on like someone to do my video. I need help on, those are the range. And that's what we're working towards. We're very cost conscious around it and trying to like lower that cost as much as we can to be mindful of our founders. Now, you still are running your campaign, right? When you do that cost. We've seen like you could hire someone to do this from start to finish for you. I've seen the range on that being anywhere between 5,000 to 30,000. And to understand not all people will take on every type of campaign. They typically want to take on campaigns that are similar to what they've successfully done in the past, right? So in addition to those costs, they're going to look for like, oh, I've done a product just like this before and I've been successful. So I already have like a list built out on this, so I can totally take it on. In the equity crowd investing space or equity crowdfunding, I've seen the lowest, if you still DIY everything yourself, is around $6,000, right? $6,000 for you to like get your financials certified, to get your paperwork done. That's the lowest that I've heard and seen overall. But I don't see that, that doesn't include all of the other aspects that you're doing. That's for like your video. If you have to do any legal changes, like filing of your paperwork and things of that sort, it doesn't include everything. And if you have to make changes, like maybe you're not already incorporated, right? Maybe you're just an LLC, that change, like those things aren't packed into it. And depending on, I will tell you, the campaigns that you recently have seen that are hitting 1 million, they spent money to do that, right? They've spent money, whether they spent money on, advertising, or if they didn't spend money, they had strong connections to get them publicity, big publicity. So whether they were able to get on a good radio program to like amplify, and that's what really did it for their campaigns. So if you are someone, I say that to say, if you are someone who has those connections, you possibly can get away with doing it less because you already have the connections that can amplify your campaign. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and I'll add that, like you said, equity crowdfunding, the average, particularly with regulation crowdfunding, so with one particular aspect of crowdfunding where you were able to raise 1 million, now it increased to 5 million, but the average legal cost, I can speak to that, was $15,000, and that's usually upfront cost. So that's something that you have to come to. So going back to the rewards base, why that's so important to come up with your sort of pre-capital, startup capital, to then go and hire the attorney you need to do the investment crowdfunding. It was about 15,000. But now that it's increased to about 5 million as the max raise, I'm predicting that those costs, legal costs and accounting costs and marketing costs would also increase because particularly with the law, the liability is higher now, right, in terms of what you're managing. And so we're going to see that. So, but yeah, there's a cost to that.
One thing I will say around that though, right, to Tanny, to understand why there's an importance for like the Elizabeths in the world. The experience that I'm hearing from entrepreneurs is like they'll go to the platforms and the platforms will say they can do a lot, right? Or they'll offer to do a lot, like we'll do it all for you. And that's where it's done the cheapest, right? But even though they do all of these things for you, it may not be done in your best interest, right? Because they're using like out of the box. It's like, remember when you used to buy software in a box, right? Like when you would go to Staples and you buy like Microsoft. Like literally that's what they're doing. They're just like pushing you into like all the templates that they have, but that like knowing your full picture is why like there's an importance of an Elizabeth being on your team, having your own like folks around it to like double check what that looks like. So it's not to say that it won't get approved and you won't get through to run your raise, but what it potentially can run into risks further down the line, right? And that's what is important to have. Like, yes, you can trust the platform to a certain extent, but you want to have your own team to also look at what the platform is saying. So what I'm hearing, Elizabeth, is like these platforms are literally telling them, we got you. You don't need all of that. You do not
and
need.
Legally, and it's wrong, and they can't legally do that. I mean, it's an inherent conflict because they are engaging in a service with them, right? So imagine if you're purchasing a home from someone and the lawyer for the seller is telling you, I can do everything for you, right? Sort of that same concept, even though there is a mutual interest, right? And I think that's probably where the lines get blurred in terms of, well, you put it on the platform, we're here to promote equity crowdfunding. But the reality, though, is that the investor, even the investors, you don't see this much of crowdfunding, but in other private equity spaces, they have their own advisors and their own lawyers, right? So these are all kinds, because they're signing documents. The investor is signing a document with the small business issuer, they call it a subscription agreement. Then the small business issuer is signing a contract with the platform. Anytime you're signing a contract with one on the other side, everyone signing, you definitely should have, your own attorney reviewing it. And it's unfortunate that that's happening because truly they should not be doing that, right? They should not be telling someone, I got you fully, without at least saying, give them an opportunity to hire an attorney and let them kind of do their thing. If they don't want to, they don't want to, right? But that, yeah, that's unfortunate. But you're right. That is why, why people like me exist, is try to again be that advocate, right? Like, no. Be careful about, moving forward. But again, it's also important for me knowing that the cost can get exponential, is also thinking about different ways to help with that, in terms of Black founders or Latinx founders, how can we make it more accessible? So constantly thinking about that as well as these things getting more costly for sure.
And the other thing I will say is, hold on, Jacqueline, we'll get to you. The other thing to note too is that you can shop your campaign. So don't think that you need to just pick one platform and like, that's it. Like shop your campaign, like talk to all the different platforms and ask them. Like you can ask me, what are you going to do for me? You can ask like other platforms, like what else do you add on to this? And then make your decision.
Right. So looks like we have another question in the chat. And I know we're running out of time. Maybe we can just go do one last one.
Yes. It's Jacqueline says, I'm assuming that some of them do what realtors are allowed to do, fill in the blank in the contracts, but without providing further which for the nature of this specific work and capital raising needs is a crazy concept.
Yes, that's exact. Like that is, so they're just pushing their templates on there. So that's when and those are you will hear these stories about that, because that's when the founders will be like, no, you can get it done for like I only paid like $6,000 to get my campaign done, because they literally just used all the templates the platform provided. And it's not to say that you can't get away with doing that. It's just the point of, when you really look at the big picture of where you're going and protecting yourself, you potentially could be putting yourself at risk for things like
investors, right? Your investors as well, because now you're beholden to those who are actually putting money into you. You're right. Yeah, it's a scary thing to go in, I think, without a lawyer, especially when you're asking for $1 million, $2 million, and you're having investors counting on you to give them a certain amount of return. You definitely want to do it. Don't cut corners with this type of stuff. And SEC it's like the police. They're always looking for people to get in trouble. So be careful with that. Well, thank you so much, Renee. I truly appreciate. I mean, this is such a fresh breath air, a light, and I'm sure everyone on this call and those who will see it afterwards will definitely, find great use and benefit from just your work alone. So I thank you for that, and those others that are on this call and those who will be listening. We are this is again part of the Black Capital Matters series. This will be recorded. You will have access to the recording on the firm's website at www.elcesq.com/media. Also, of course, follow us on social media. That's much more up to date at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is at ELCESQ LLC. We're also on LinkedIn at ELCESQ. And we're going to continue these series. So we have another, I don't think next week because of the holiday, but starting in December, we have another interview. So stay tuned. And again, thank you so much, Renee. And I look forward to collaborating with you in the future.
I know we have a lot of work to do. So thank you. Yeah. I'm excited. And everyone on this call can join in, by the way. So let's do this. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.